Telemachus continues his act, barely keeping it together. Odysseus isn't doing much better, as he takes a huge risk to perhaps save one of his enemies' lives. Finally, Penelope begins putting her plans into action too. Or perhaps just Athena's. You decide. Hello and welcome, or welcome back. My name is Zachary May, and today we are reading the great books of Western civilization, continuing with the Odyssey. This is the Robert Fagles translation, Book 18, and as always, I'll begin with a brief plot summary before getting into analysis and commentary. Another beggar, named Eros, arrives at the palace. Finding a stranger in what is normally his usual spot, he threatens to beat him. The beggar does not budge, and the suitors force the two to fight, offering a slice of meat as a prize. The stranger, however, defeats Eros easily. Amphinomus congratulates the old man on his victory and wishes him good fortune as he hands him the slice of meat. Moved, the beggar tries to warn the man to leave the palace at once and cease his lawless ways before Odysseus, likely very close by, comes home. Amphinomus ponders the warning gravely, but Athena, we are told, had already decided that he would die first of all the suitors in the conflict to come. The goddess remains active. She inspires Penelope, giving her the desire to appear before her suitors and inflame them with desire, although she still loathes them. The goddess also makes her more beautiful to suit her to the task. Upon arrival in the banquet hall, the first thing she does is reprimand Telemachus for allowing his guest, the stranger, to risk injury by fighting another beggar. Telemachus hesitates, seemingly about to defend himself, before admitting that this was a mistake. The two then share their hopes that the suitors will be struck down by the gods themselves in the near future. The suitors approach Penelope and compliment her on her great beauty. She takes the compliment humbly before tactfully calling out their behavior in the hall. Other suitors, she says, would be bringing her gifts instead of feasting from her pantry day after day. The beggar glows, sensing that some trickery of hers is afoot. The suitors' servants each go to fetch a gift for Penelope from their own homes. Meanwhile, as night comes on, the beggar tells the maidservants of the palace to retire for the night. He will ensure the suitors are taken care of himself. One maid, Melantho, the lover of Eurymachus, mocks him, but then flees before his fury with the rest of the obedient servants. Athena inspires Eurymachus to insult the beggar, so that the wrath of Odysseus will be even greater when the time finally comes. When the beggar insults him right back, the suitor throws a stool at him, but misses, laying out one of the cupbearers instead. Telemachus and Amphinomus settle everyone down before the suitors return to their homes for the night. I'd like to share a brief insight from Knox that happens to draw our attention to a remarkably profound passage towards the beginning of this chapter. He points out that Odysseus nearly gives himself away when speaking with Amphinomus. He had just beat Eros in a boxing match, and the suitor approached him with kind words and a goat sausage as his reward for the victory. Totally not Odysseus says, "Amphinomus, you seem like a man of good sense to me, just like your father." Whoops. At least I've heard his praises. Nisus of Dulichion, a righteous man, and rich. You're his son, they say. You seem well-spoken, too. This is dangerous ground, Knox tells us. He calls Amphinomus by name. How could this ragged beggar who had just arrived know it? He goes even further. Just like your father. It's a slip he tries to cover at once, adding quickly, "At least I've heard his praises." Homer has made it clear what a great risk Odysseus is running in his attempt to save Amphinomus' life. It's true, Odysseus risks exposure by this move, and you gotta wonder, why did he do it? We see time and time again that Amphinomus is the most polite of the suitors, though he's not perfect. Odysseus, even in the midst of plotting his wrath, even in the midst of knowing that if he makes a wrong move, he could end up like Agamemnon, he feels pity for this man. So much so that he's willing to risk that exposure to try to save him. It does no good, of course, for Athena had already doomed him to be the first to die, but still, it's the lesson from the Iliad, still present here in the Odyssey, and that is noteworthy. I really love the monologue that Odysseus uses to try to convince the man to leave, though. It's a little long, but I'll read it here anyway. "So I will tell you something. Listen. Listen closely. Of all that breathes and crawls across the earth, our Mother Earth breeds nothing feebler than a man. So long as the gods grant him power, spring in his knees, he thinks he will never suffer affliction down the years. But then, when the happy gods bring on the long, hard times, bear them he must, against his will, and steal his heart. Our lives, our mood and mind as we pass across the earth, turn as the days turn, as the Father of men and gods makes each day dawn. I too seem destined to be a man of fortune once, and a wild, wicked swath I cut, indulged my lust for violence, staking all on my father and my brothers. Look at me now. And so, I say, let no man ever be lawless all his life. Just take in peace what gifts the gods will send. I won't analyze that too much, just let that wash over you. Are you living your life recklessly, thoughtlessly, as if you'll be unstoppable forever? Young men, young women, pay attention. Older folks, tell us, isn't Odysseus speaking the truth here? Penelope and Telemachus both play important roles in furthering the plots of Odysseus and Athena to wipe out the suitors. In doing so, we see Telemachus continue to act, as we spoke about last time, and we see Penelope display her merits of wisdom and cunning. Really, it's an entire family of smart tricksters. First, Athena inspires Penelope to appear before the suitors, inflaming them with desire. She infuses the queen with beauty and, I'd imagine, confidence, for the first thing she does when she arrives is scold Telemachus, for his own good, not to mix so much with that pernicious crowd. Glib, but plotting wicked plots. Telemachus, your sense of balance, fairness seems to fail you. Consider the dreadful thing just done in our halls, how you let the stranger be so abused. Suppose our guest were hauled and badly hurt by such cruel treatment? You'd be shamed, disgraced in all men's eyes. She's right. As the host, he is responsible for protecting this helpless beggar. This is definitely a marked moment of confidence where she appears more motherly to him. Now, we know, just like Telemachus does, why his behavior actually makes sense. It makes sense if you know that he's under orders from Odysseus to allow such things to happen. And he even seems to consider defending himself or giving himself away, but thinks better of it. Penelope does not know that, though. She doesn't know that Odysseus is home. In fact, she seems not able to receive this news, for she disbelieves it whenever she's told. I think, though, Athena is steering her so that she's helping out with the plan anyway. Perhaps she does not know why it is she's doing what she does, or if she does know, sure, she has some reason behind it herself, she doesn't know the full picture of what the goddess has in mind. But even without that full knowledge, she does what she does cleverly. She appears before them looking beautiful and suggests that all the suitors ought to go and get her some presents to win her over. Staunch Odysseus glowed with joy to hear all this. His wife's trickery, luring gifts from her suitors now, enchanting their hearts with suave, seductive words, but all the while with something else in mind. In fact, as we'll see, it will be a scenario that she herself designs that sets up the opportune moment for Odysseus and Telemachus to take their revenge at last. It's really clever and shows that, again, she and Odysseus are two peas in a pod. They're both people of twists and turns. I don't know for sure, and I don't think anybody does, what her actual plan was with designing this scenario, but it's clever nonetheless. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. And comment below, what do you think Penelope is up to with putting herself before the suitors, or, as we'll see soon, designing a task for each of them to prove themselves worthy of her? If she doesn't know that Odysseus is here, what could she be up to? What does she think that she's up to? Let me know what you think, and we'll see you next time.